My name is Karen Cropper. I'm Project and Liaison Manager for AllNet, as Scott introduced. Patrick and I are going to split this talk up, and I'm just going to do an initial bit. Let me just get my thing together. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an introduction to our project, talk about the project team and give an overview, and then Patrick's going to, really in the light now, Patrick's going to give you, talk about the findings that we've had so far, the current work that we're doing and what we're doing in the future. I am actually going to get up and walk about in a minute, but just get used to the technology. Okay, so AllNet is a research project, and we're evidence-based. It's grown out of the Open Learn at the Open University, and there was some research work done, and I have copies of this report if anybody's interested, and I do want you to take them away because I don't want to carry them in my case back again. They were quite heavy. So grown from the findings of Open Learn and of the Open Learning Initiative at CMU. And we're an evidence-based project, so we have a number of researchers, but I'll come on to that. So the project is a partnership between the Open University and Carnegie Mellon University. I've already said it came about from Open Learn and the Open Learning Initiative. We're funded by the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation to February 2012. The project started in March 2009, and I joined it in September 2009. And what we do, we've got a mixture of things. It's a kind of portfolio of research. We have researchers, we have fellows. Scott was one of our fellows. I'll come on to that. We're involved with developing tools and building an infrastructure. Now, this is where I kind of need to walk about, because I thought we'd be in a nice little intimate space, but it's a bit more intimidating than I thought it was going to be, and I wanted to be able to point to this. Really, I'm not going to go into this in detail, but I just wanted to give an overview of the complexity of what we're doing, or how many people are working on the project. So this overall is the project team. And on this side, we have all the researchers who are not necessarily working full-time on the project, but are involved. We've got a bit of colour coding going on here, if you want to just check. So this is the CMU colour, Open University. Our part of the Open University is the Institute of Educational Technology. And then we've got the Open University Knowledge Media Institute. And then we've got another representative from the Language School. FEL stands for Faculty of Education Language Studies. So it's a complicated project. We've got these research activities in the yellowy green. So we've got learning design, OER effectiveness. Tessa is teaching English in the teacher education in sub-Saharan Africa. We've got participatory learning, and then these two projects, one of them at CMU and one of them at the Open University, is about collective intelligence and tools related to collective intelligence. These are the AllNet tools that are in the pink. So we've got Cohere, Compendium, Compendium LD, we've got Knowledge Forum, we've got our website, allnet.org. My role, I'm going to come back now, that's me there. This is Patrick here. We've got CMU, Candice Thiel, who's not here today, but Renee Fisher, somewhere in the audience there. And then a whole group of other people. I'm not going to go into that because we've got a list of other talks. We're quite well represented here at the conference, and at the end we've got a list of our colleagues who are talking in more detail about what we're doing. So I'll talk about the fellowships just briefly because that's what I'm involved with, organising. They're working out really well, I think, perhaps better than we thought on paper. How we've got it set up is that researchers can come for a short time, a long time, so somewhere between a week and a few months, and they can focus on a specific project, but I'll show you who they are. So these are some of the researchers that we've had as fellows so far. I'll just point, sorry. Go back. Got to get up again. So we've got Scott there, just in case anyone wants to know, without a beard. We have Chuck Severance, Engin, he was from Turkey. He was with us for 6 months. Agnes is with us at the moment. She's from Xerox. She's doing some collective intelligence work. Svetlana's from Russia. Pauline did some work on Africa. Yimin's from China. And Yanis is from Spain. And there's 2 others that we've not got pictures of on there. Jenny and Elspeth. We didn't have photos in time to do this. So it just gives you an idea. We've had quite a few people, and it's been really good for the networking side of things, I think, as much as anything. It's the bit of for the pieces of work that they've done. So I need to hurry up a bit, actually. So we've also been developing tools, using tools that are available on in the field, but also developing our own appropriate tools. So we've got Cohere, CloudWorks, and our website for social interaction on research. So this is my halfway point in the talk. It's also halfway on our project because we've had just over a year and a half of funding. So now we're getting to the point where we've got some results and we're looking at the direction we're going. So what we find is that we're looking for keys to unlocking potential, and we're shifting direction slightly, taking into account new things that are coming along, like we've got a new piece of work that we're doing for Hewlett in relation to analysing the grantees' reports that everybody who's had funding from Hewlett have submitted reports, and now we're doing an analysis of it. And we're also changing our aims to reflect the next generation learning agenda and shifting from trying to develop a social network ourselves to participating in other activities of other projects. Is that okay to hand over to you, Patrick?
Okay. Is this microphone on for me? Not yet. I'll keep talking. Is it going to come on? Yeah. Okay, that's great. Well, Karen has sort of said the essentials, I think, of where we are in terms of the approach we're taking. And I think probably, as I was listening to that, I thought, well, actually, it would be great to just stop and do questions now. But I'm going to take you sort of through a whistle-stop tour of things that we've done. We've got a research team. Actually, many of these people are here today. It's got Andrea, Elpida, Tina, Jota, Kasia, and Anna. And Andrea, Tina, Jota, and Anna are all here at the conference and giving talks later on. But what we've done inside the research team is take sort of little research projects, because part of what we feel is needed in the open education research world was to follow up some leads as we started on. So work that Elpida did in particular is looking at what it means to add the social side to open education resources. And Bim's talk at the beginning sort of said it's more than content, and a sort of social approach to learning on top of the free availability of the content allows all sorts of flexibility. And this diagram is a bit hard to interpret, but it's about, I'll give you a sort of picture instead, which I think summarises it for me, and a term that Elpida's used, which is, you see fairy rings of participation. I don't know whether you know about fairy rings. They are where you see mushrooms growing in a ring, and it seems very strange until you realise it's all interconnected. It's all happening beneath the surface. And we see the same thing happening in the social spaces. So Elpida did a study where she looked first at 3,000 different sites in summary and followed people's journey that you can see acting online. And one of the interesting things about researching the open world is how much you can follow up on the actions that people take by observing in a way which in the past just wouldn't be possible. So that's one little whistle top. Another one is Jota's work, and I think you'll either have to leave this room very quickly to hear Jota's talk or pick up on the work separately. But she's been carrying out studies and interviews with people who are involved and sort of trying to pick up on the opinions. And so we're mixing different sorts of research bases here. So how do you come from opinions into turning it into evidence is one of our challenges. And so she's analysed more than 25 interviews, looking for what motivates people, also looking for themes that come out. So we're able to use this interview data to look at copyright issues across different areas. Tina has been looking at work and actually joint with other people. There's a talk about this jointly given with Robert Skuur from Open University Netherlands and also a representative from the University of Delft. And so But we've also been looking in Africa, the work that one of our fellows did, Pauline, carried out a study of the infrastructure in Africa. So we're sort of mixing all these different pieces of information so we can see different angles and draw it together. We also have a great resource on our doorstep at the Open University and Open Learn. So one of our researchers, Kasia, is looking at the evidence we find for why the learners we're getting. So we've got those 8 million users who visited us in the first couple of years. It's now up to 11 million distinct users have used Open Learn. And trying to understand what motivates people to come to these open sites. Alongside this, I suppose it's worth saying, I'm talking particularly about what we're doing in the Open University part of AllNet, but in Carnegie Mellon, they're looking at what happens with the colleges around the Open Learning Initiative data, and we're also working with other partners there. Andrea has been looking at what makes people collaborate around open education resources. And here we've built up a very good connection with Brazil through using open resources as the exchange media. So we don't need to make formal connections. And what's interesting is, in the hands of others, there's different models emerge for how it can be used. So this describes in brief, and there'll be a talk later on which Andrea is giving, about the approach that's been taken by UNISL in Brazil, where they've used open education resources to support open courses. And they offer courses during their quiet time as a university to which anybody can come. Anna and Simon will be also giving talks about the infrastructure, and we need to understand this data. So one of the tools we're developing is called Cohere, and we're applying this at the moment as a research tool to help us understand and map the area. So that was run through some of the researchers' work, but we also need to learn from the work of others, and we've been given a great opportunity by the Hewlett Foundation, who've given us access to the reports that all of the grantees have written along the way. So there might well be some people in this room, but I'm sure there are, whose reports we're now sort of working through, using again the Cohere approach to look at what are the issues coming out. But it's interesting just to also see the picture of where we've come from, and those grantee reports, once we've categorised them into different sections, these are our categorisations from reading them, you can see sort of the emphasis in the past has been around what gets things started, how do you get people reducing free content, and there's a shift happening towards how we get things into use. And I think there's a very interesting changes happening over the last couple of years in how we view the OER world. So I want to sort of finish by going through 5 themes that we're sort of now picking out to work on. I don't know whether Barbara's here or whether she's in another session, but Barbara Chow from Hewlett made this comment that OER is now a catalyst. It's an agent for change. It's not just something in itself. So open education resources offer this transfer of content without barrier that aids the collaboration, aids things working in different areas. So what happens in schools can influence higher education and vice versa. And so there's a sort of policy aspect of OER that we think is a very interesting area to work on. The design for openness. How people can design content so that it can operate in this open world. And what we found coming out of our research is that there's a sort of counterpoint to that, which is how do you design the way people can use all of these resources? And those are free resources, not just the ones that people have designated. Again, in the first keynote this morning, the point was made that it's not just about the bits that you license, it's about the resources that are out there for free and using the whole of the public resources, not just the licensed commons. The tools enable us to work together. This is very much a joint activity, and it's not about acting in a centralised way, it's acting as part of the community. And there's tools that are emerging in the world that help do this, and tools that we're also developing ourselves. The ways to use open educational resources. So there's the accreditation. How do you actually get people through into our conventional, more formal systems, taking the informal into the formal? How do we accredit this? How do we assess this? But there's also emerging new models for how you learn. So peer-to-peer university, concepts of the DIYU, OpenSE up there is a European project looking at how software engineering can be taught by getting people to engage with the open source community and carry out real projects. So there's new ways of learning is our fourth theme. But the role of content itself, it's easy to sort of say content isn't everything. It certainly isn't. But it actually acts in a very interesting way. And the work that I referred to earlier, looking at the social learning that goes on around content, it needs a sort of core that draws together people who've got shared interest. That's sort of our fifth theme. Or maybe it's the fourth, I've lost count. So I want to end with this sort of context. This map actually comes from a UNESCO one showing all the people who've been involved in talking about the direction of open education resources. What our fellowship program has given us is a way to see the interesting aspects that need to be dealt with differently as different contexts come in. So one of our fellows at the moment is Yimin from China, and she's been able to tell us about new approaches they're taking in China, which I was completely unaware of, which is looking at the way in which you can offer as a prize for producing a nationally excellent course, the reward is to give it away for free and sort of build up reputation on the openness and draw in from that the openness that comes from around the world. So just sort of to bring things together, we've now got goals around those areas. Those goals, we think, are ones that will help set our own agenda, but we can see it being reflected in the agendas of others. And we can see one of the key things is that there's this breakdown that OER offers. So I sort of want to pick out one lesson from several. It's thinking of open education resources as the way in which they change the way we work together, the way we research, the way we collaborate, and the way it can influence different sectors. And our approach is to sort of look for the evidence. Evidence that you'll have in your head, evidence that we can see from studies, evidence that we gather ourselves. So we can see very much that there's part of an open future, and the influence that openness has is something that we couldn't stop if we wanted to. I doubt whether anybody in this room wants to stop, but we need to be engaged with seeing how openness can change the way we operate. And as has already been mentioned by Karen, there's more about a lot of what I've said in this very quick tour through in other presentations here. These are the ones which we feel AllNet is responsible for today, and we've got other talks from colleagues at the Open University that connect closely with this. So I'll just switch back to this and say you would need to leave us very quickly if you wanted to get to some of these other talks, which we're in parallel with. But I do hope you can go and hear some more detail. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Karen. If the rest of our speakers are as good as you'll make my job quite easy. They left about 5 minutes for questions. So do we have any questions? I think we have a mic floating around.
So as we're here representing one of the sites that AllNet studied, in particular, smarthistory.org, that Elpida studied. Is Elpida in the audience? Because we haven't.
No, Elpida is one of the few people from AllNet who actually isn't in Barcelona.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But I'm wondering if you're doing anything to form a community around the people who have been creating resources that you've been studying, because I think that would. I sort of feel like we've been in touch with Elpida and AllNet, but it sounds like there's might be fruit to be gotten from a community around that.
Yeah. I'm going to give sort of two answers to that. One is that yes, we did sort of start particularly with community forming around sort of AllNet as one of our aims. And I think you've made a very good point that actually we've got some people who we ought to perhaps more particularly bring together. But we actually changed the balance a bit because there's a lot of activity that we don't really want to sort of compete with. We feel that we're sort of joining in with the communities around WikiEducator, around UNESCO, around OpenEd. So AllNet has a place where you can join, and there is a community around Elpida's work on there. But I felt that actually the sort of being the place everybody comes to is something that we don't want to be. We want to be part of what everybody else is doing. Does that make sense to you?
Just a small follow-up, which is that I totally understand you don't want to create another community place for everyone to go to, but there might be it seems to me there might be a way to still facilitate connection among the people who are involved in research projects.
Yeah.
Other questions? Patrick, maybe if I can ask, are there other ways that you can suggest to people to keep track of what's going on at AllNet?
Yeah, well, at AllNet, we do... sorry, my question might have put people off, because do come to allnet.org and join up there. We operate as well through the CloudWorks site, which was being used in the... for this conference. So do pick up a leaflet here, and people can post notes from the conference up in the CloudWorks. It hooks up well with Twitter as well and feed into Twitter into the site. So CloudWorks, allnet.org, those are the things to remember.
Great. If there's no other questions, I'd ask you to thank our speakers again.